as always, we are joined at this time by the one and only Clay Henry, the man with too many titles to go through. So I'm not going to go through any of them. I'm just going to say, Mr.
Well, can I just be Drew's friend?
That is perfectly fine. Joining us now is Clay Henry, Drew's friend. Clay, how you doing? How are you? Have you recuperated from your trip last week?
Yeah, I'm in Fayetteville today. I'm doing some Hogs Plus stuff with Harold and Tim Horton. Tim is in from Air Force Academy. He's a coach there, and spending the week with his dad. And so we sit down in their living room early this morning and talked. And that'll probably be out next week. But Harold is Tim, or their Razorback royalty. Is pretty cool to talk with those two guys.
Yeah,
but I'm over the traveling around the heartlands of America. I think we were in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and headquartered in Pennsylvania for 4 days.
It's a heck of a trip, Clay. I mean, you crossed off a lot of states there, and a lot of people are looking forward to what's going to happen in Atlanta next week. And what was your thoughts on the three representatives of Arkansas in KJ, Bumper, and Jalen? Just kind of the obvious choices, right?
Yeah, and I know, Tommy and Ty now they were suggesting Ricky Stromberg, but I've talked with Ricky, and he's a good interview, but he's a reluctant interview, and I think that's the last thing he wanted to do. He's very comfortable leading and talking with his pads, and has told me that. But I think getting up on a stage, that's not really what he wanted to do. And I've always told those guys it's important for them to do it, because I think it's the kind of pub or hype that helps you, in your next stages in life, whether it be the NFL or in business. Your name, your reputation as a person, as a speaker, as someone that a company might. You don't know who's watching those things, and something will click, and they're like, "I like that guy," and then that might be. When they see your resume, I like that guy. I want him in our company. So it's important for those guys to go to that, but sometimes they don't want to.
Yeah, some people do get a little stage fright, a little nervous, but like you said, it is always good to have that and to show companies, to show teams that you're good under pressure and good with the microphone in front of you. And these guys are going to have in front
of people.
Yeah.
Yep.
These guys are going to have a lot of microphones in front of them when they're down there on Wednesday, and they're going to be asked a lot of the same questions. It always seems that there's going to only be about 2, 3, maybe even 4 questions that get asked over and over again. What do you think some of those main questions from, I guess, outside Arkansas media is going to want to know from those guys?
Yeah, well, it's the things we talk about, and they'll be prepped on all this. Kyle Parkinson and his staff in communications will do a good job of, asking and simulating this stuff. These guys are coached in these sessions, and I don't go to them because I'm not crazy about them, because of what we're just talking about is that it will be the status quo. It will be canned responses, so to speak. Every once in a while, you'll have somebody that really goes off the cuff and is fantastic, and and then the school wish that they maybe weren't quite as candid. That might be bulletin board or whatever. But yeah, they're going to be asked: was last year a fluke? How can y'all maintain that? Did you see it coming? Did you? Can you repeat it? And are y'all contenders? Or are y'all back on the big stage? And those sort of things. And that some Georgia guy will say, "Well, what happened in Georgia?" And they're looking for their angle, so to speak. And there's some breakout sessions where all people will be involved. And Sam Pittman and the players might come into those, and that would be that you can kind of have follow-up questions. But, in that big group session, you might get the mic one time. And I've always been – those are situations where I don't want to ask the first question. I kind of hang back and see how things play out and then come back to something that maybe wasn't fleshed out and ask the follow-up.
Mm.
I'm sure people that have been to press conferences will replace it over there like a knot on the log, and all once I pounce at the very end with some follow-ups to maybe a couple of topics.
Well, as a first-time attendee, I've been told that I shouldn't even raise my hand, that there's no way I'm getting the microphone.
Wrong.
Is that not correct?
That's wrong. No, well, that's wrong to do that to anybody. And I think that, first of all, there's no bad questions. And I think I've seen evidence that some of the really silly questions that Ty would come up with get great responses. And Nate Allen and I are over on the side rolling our eyes, and then boom, it might be an answer that doesn't really go with the question, but something triggered it. So you and Ty need to keep asking the questions. It might lead me to a great follow-up.
Well, if I can set you up some way, Clay, I definitely will. But
I'm for it.
I got you. Well, one of the questions that I think KJ Jefferson's going to get asked, he talked about was last year a fluke, and how can you improve? He's going to be asked, how can you improve on the incredible performance that he had last year? And he's kind of looking at statistics, looking at his game, and just really how well he developed from Rice to Penn State. Really, what part of his game do you think needs any bit of improvement? His accuracy was continuing to go up. He finished at a good, accurate number at the end of the season. 21 total passing touchdowns. I think added 5 more on the ground. If you were asked that question about KJ, where part of his game would you want to see improvement this year?
I think that how he improved would be, like what he does better. It's going to be, how does he adjust to a new set of receivers, and who's going to be his Treylon Burks? And I think the answer is that they won't have one, that it'll be a great number of guys stepping up, and he's probably going to be asked how they will utilize Malik Hornsby and the Oklahoma transfer. It's Hazelwood, Jaden Hazelwood, and they'll talk about their offensive line. I always like to ask quarterbacks how their own defense is going to be, because they see those guys in practice more than anybody. I mean, the offensive players, and then you can ask defensive players what they see in their offense and the offensive skill players. Like I enjoyed visiting with Jalen Catalon, asking about KJ Jefferson. So those to me are the best questions to ask when you can kind of get another view of a player talking about his own teammate. And then you'll have Alabama reporters asking about how they played against Alabama and what they saw in Bryce Young. They're going on different angles. They're not writing about Arkansas. They're writing about and there will be a huge throng of Georgia reporters in that room because proximity to Athens and everything. That's when it was in Hoover, it would be Alabama and Auburn reporters. It's just easy for them to get there. They don't have to even stay in a hotel. They don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Clay, and I hope I'm not stealing some of Ty's material or something that he might have planned to ask you on Friday, but him and Tommy had a really good conversation this morning about some lists that have come out of top 10 coaches in college football. And Tommy asked the question, how far away is Sam Pittman from being a top 10 guy and kind of where he is now? So to be a top 10 guy, is it longevity? Is it record? Is it a mix of both? And realistically, how long until you could have actual discussions of Sam Pittman being, maybe knocking on that door of a top 10 coach?
To be a top 10 coach, your team has to be a top 10 regular. And they got up to the top 10, and then Georgia knocked them back, and then Ole Miss and Auburn, the 3-game losing streak. So all you have to do, I've said this from 1992 forward when Arkansas came in the SEC, you have the national platform to be noticed. You just need to win SEC games. It adds up really quickly with everyone around the country when they look and you're playing at the end of the year, either in the SEC championship game or for a chance to go to the SEC championship. You'll be on Coach of the Year ballots. He was on Coach of the Year ballots last year, but he has to do it in more than 1 year. There has to be some reputation built over time. You have to put more in the bank than 1 9-4 season, but it's there for him. And, it'll be the way he hires coaches when Kendall Briles and Barry Odom, take head coaching jobs. And I think that will happen sooner rather than later. If they win, Sam Pittman's assistants will be highly coveted, just as Frank Broyles' assistants were. We talked about this yesterday, and I got some pushback from Tyne and Tommy about what I said and compared Sam with Frank, and they thought I was talking about 64, 65, 66, all the way to 75 when he had a big turnover of staff. I was talking about his ability to hire Hayden Fry in 1961 when they were just getting started, but he brought him in from South Texas, Odessa, San Angelo, just to call plays for Lance Allward. And the ability to hire top assistant coaches is the key for Sam to stay in the national limelight. That's how he's going to win, and that's how he'll become a top 10 coach. But you got to finish in the top 10 to be a top 10 coach. Otherwise, you're a top 20 coach or a top 25 coach. That's just without hardly scratching the surface. And the answer, it is where do you finish? If you're not in the top 10, how could you be a top 10 coach?
Very good answer, Clay. Last thing for you, just real quick, do you think that we'll get any bombshells from SEC Media Days, or is it going to be a lot of the keeping the status quo, we're good with 16 going forward, and just a bunch of reiterating what we think we already know and what Greg Sankey's already said?
Probably not bombshells, but there may be some definition. We're pretty close from the USC, UCLA stuff, so that will be talked about in his state of the SEC message. And there may be some coaches that haven't really talked in the last 2 weeks that speak on that. But I think that we'll probably get a rehash of the Texas A&M, Alabama, Nick Saban versus Jimbo Fisher, and they're going to dodge around, but they can't help themselves. They're going to say something that will be twisted and turned. Alabama and Texas A&M players, that they may get the first shot at what kind of rivalry do we have brewing in the SEC West with those schools. And I think coaches like Sam Pittman and Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is always a candidate for a bombshell. He might step in with his thoughts on Jimbo or Nick, or he may dance. So that's I bet we get something, but by and large, these things are pretty boring. Drew, kind of like me.
Oh, Clay, you're not boring, and I hopefully it's going to be just as fun as I built it up in my head as I finally do have the opportunity, thanks to Tommy, to go to my first SEC Media Days. Well, Clay, we'll leave it there. We'll talk to you next Wednesday while Arkansas is at the podiums, and we'll have some sound bites to play for you, and we'll get your reaction to everything that's been said up to that point.
Well, you're going to have a good time, and a lot of it's media talking to media, so you'll enjoy that. You're going to make some contacts and have some new people to bring to our audience next week. So have fun, and and you will represent us well.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.